What's good, people? It's Joshua from Joshua Chubb Photography back again with another video. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Canon R6. So this is going to be my kind of way too early review or my initial impressions after shooting with this camera for the last 2 weeks. And so for those of you who maybe haven't seen past videos, I've been thinking about switching from my beloved Fujifilm system over to Canon. And so this will be the first video in a 3-part series that I have decided to make about the Canon R6 versus Fujifilm. So this first video, just going to give you, like I said, kind of like my initial impressions after 2 weeks. I'll tell you about some things I like, some things that I don't like. And then the second video, I'll be diving into still images and just kind of showing you guys, the difference in image quality and things like that. And then the third video will be about video. So we'll do video samples and autofocus tests and all that kind of stuff. So right away, I'll tell you, when I first put this camera in hand, the grip, it's different obviously than Fujifilm. It is a bigger camera overall. It's beefier. So for the first couple days, like, I had to get used to the grip, and it was uncomfortable. But I can definitely say that the grip, my hand was able to adjust to it just fine over time. I mean, it really does fit like a glove. On some of the smaller Fuji bodies, like the maybe like the X100 series or like the XE series, like, I have big hands, so like my pinky would slip off. Obviously, this being a bigger camera, that's not a problem at all. Definitely a good grip. And I do like the button placement on the back. It's kind of easy to get to everything. Canon have decided to put their focus selector switch up here, and it's right there by the thumb. So at first I thought it was kind of weird. On Fuji it is a little bit lower and it requires you to adjust your grip, but here it's just a nice slide over to get to that. So I definitely do like that. One thing that I kind of love and kind of don't love is this rotation wheel here. So this can be used to do a variety of things in the menu. It's how you can select certain items. When you are going through photos, you just rotate the wheel, and then that's how you either go forward or backwards through the photos. Also, if you have it in Kelvin white balance, when you rotate the wheel, it'll adjust the color temperature, so that's pretty cool. The thing that I guess I don't like about it, the wheel specifically, though it's overall a pro, it's actually not a button. So you can't, assign, shortcuts to it or custom functions. And to be honest, I don't know. It's not really possible for it to be both. So it has plenty of other buttons that you can customize. So I'll give it a pass and still keep it in the pro column. Just thought you guys should know. Another thing that I do like is the menu system. So guys, I want to jump in here real quick. I forgot to mention this. With the menu, it is kind of unique how you can interact with it, but a pro that I also didn't mention is the touchscreen. The touchscreen is great because not only when you're shooting, you can actually click on different things, but in the menu you can actually use the touchscreen, so that is super great. But I'm not used to interacting with a touchscreen in the menu because you can't do that on Fuji. So I'm used to actually just using the buttons. So one thing I thought was a little bit different is how you interact with the menu when you're not using the touchscreen. So, for example, you got these tabs here at the very top. To use those without the touchscreen, you have to rotate this dial, and that's all that the dial does. Then you see each page 1 through 9 here. If you want to go through that, you actually rotate this top dial, and that's the only way that you can go through. But then if you want to make a selection on the menu itself, you have to use the wheel on the back. So I thought that was unique. Now you might be asking, well, what about the selector? So this does let you do everything, but it's kind of weird. So up and down, you can select on the menu. Left and right, you can select the pages. But in order to select the tabs at the very top, you can't go up again because it just takes you back. So you have to go all the way over to get through each tab. I mean, I thought that, you know, was maybe just a little bit weird. And then of course, the focus selector is clickable. Another thing that I do like is the menu system. It does not reset when you exit the menu. So on Fujifilm, let's say you're in the camera settings and you're on a certain page. So if you set it and then you go to shoot and then you immediately go back to the menu, you have to go all the way back to the page where you were. With Fuji, if you have like the My Menu set up, it automatically takes you back to My Menu. Here on Canon, whatever setting you were on in the menu, when you go to shoot, if you go right back to the menu, it does take you right back to where you were. So that's pretty good. Of course, I do like the autofocus system. To be kind of brief, in my testing, autofocus is very sticky, but for what I do and for how I used it, Fujifilm is not very far behind. Now your experience and mileage could vary if you do things like hardcore sports action wildlife. I didn't attempt any of that, so I'm going to use the camera how I would normally use it. I'm not going to especially go out of my way to do things that I wouldn't normally do. So take that with a grain of salt. Now into some of the things that I don't like or don't really care for. One of them being, and this might be a pro to some people, is the custom function buttons. So you do get 3 custom function buttons. And I guess the thing that's weird, so for example on Fuji, obviously you can tweak the camera settings for different custom functions, like on the XS10. So like you can tweak your autofocus mode, whether you want it to be face detect. You can tweak your white balance. You can tweak if it's a RAW or JPEG. There's certain things that you can tweak. Well, on Canon, and let's say for some people this might be a pro, whatever custom function buttons that you have, so for example, I program the OK button to be also the menu button. So if I'm in manual mode or if I'm in aperture mode, when I hit the OK button, when I hit the set button, it actually goes to the menu. But if I'm in C1, C2, or C3, it forgets that this is the menu button. So basically you have to go back and actually reset all of your custom function buttons also in the menu for the custom function, if that makes sense, right? So I thought that was kind of weird. Some people might like it. I didn't particularly care for it. So another thing that I didn't particularly enjoy, and this one completely subjective, is the shutter sound. The shutter sound is very dampened, very kind of soft, very subjective though. So I mean, that's just a very personal taste. You might like it. I just didn't really care for it compared to Fuji. One thing that I thought was strange, that I did not expect in my test, I do from time to time self-portraits, and so I'll set the timer on my camera to usually 10 seconds, sometimes 2 seconds, and then I'll stand back and I'll let the camera take a photo. So what happens on Fuji is when you do this, and if you have like face detect on, you can take a photo, go stand in place, and it'll count down, and right before it reaches 0 to release the shutter, it will reacquire focus to find your face and then snap the photo. In my test on the R6, it does not do this. So if you set it to a 2-second timer or a 10-second timer, whatever it locks onto focus, that's what's going to be in focus. So it literally makes it like not impossible, but without using like the Canon app, which I didn't download, or without using a remote shutter, it makes it almost impossible to take a self-portrait. Like I did my own photos for my passport, and it was just easy. Set the timer, get my lighting and everything set up, and then I'll let it take the picture and it finds my face. And it didn't matter what setting I had it in. I put it in servo autofocus, I had face detect on, I put it in continuous autofocus, I put it in single autofocus, servo off, and I could not get it to focus on me. So I'm gonna roll a quick video clip just to kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. And so I just thought that was a very kind of strange thing. So into that clip now. So if I hit the shutter, it's going to count down, boom, right, because it was already focused on me. But what happens is, if there is nothing in focus and then you pop in the frame, you're blurry. So I'm going to show you the playback. Look at that, blurry. So let's do it again. It's focused on my eye, and if I can be in the frame, it's good. Boom, snaps it. Let's go to the playback. Boom, you can see, hey, it's good. If I go back, now let's say I touch the shutter and I take a step back, it doesn't refocus before it snaps the photo. So I'm going to show you now the same test, but it's going to be on the X-T3. Alright, so we are back, and I'm on the Fujifilm, and we're going to try the test again for self-timer mode. I have the Fujifilm set in autofocus single with face detect on. You can see my focus point here, just to show you guys how this works. And the thing about the Fujifilm, you can't even put it in continuous autofocus when you have the self-timer on. It automatically defaults to autofocus single, even if you have a switch in AFC. Now of course you can do manual focus on your own, but I want to move the focus point out the way and down, that way you guys can actually see that it's still going to grab focus on me. But I'm going to go ahead and hit. I'm going to pop over. Boom. Okay. So now when we come back, you see it focused down here initially. Play, and look, here I am in focus. And then the last con with the camera is really just the size and weight. So funny thing, I handed this to my wife with the 50mm on, the 50mm 1.8, and immediately she was like, this is heavy. And so I mean, she's handled my Fujifilm gear before, and it's the truth. I mean, like, even just, you know, like kind of holding this body alone, it is, you know, heavy. And then if you pair 1.2 glass, or, you know, 70 to 200, 2.8, even though they have done a great job of making the newer ones smaller, it's still going to be big and heavy. And that takes me also to the feel of like the lenses and the bodies. You get just hard plastics. And so one thing that I do enjoy about Fujifilm, it being a smaller camera system, they can employ more premium materials. That way you still get like a nice heft to it, but it just feels a lot nicer in the hand overall. Another thing, this isn't really a con, this is just something I noticed. This definitely feels more like a computer. It does feel more of a digital experience. Kind of weird. For example, if you have the camera on, if you open the door for the memory card, the camera automatically cuts off. So it's connected there. If you open the battery door for the camera, it cuts off. So these things are all connected. So it definitely feels, you know, more like a computer, in my honest opinion. Doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It's just, you know, what I noticed. On Fuji, the battery door and the memory card door flat, they're not connected to the camera, so you could open it up with the camera still being on. Don't know why you would need to do it, just something that I noticed. However, one thing that I do like about the camera is that it will, actually I still had it on, it will close the shutter. So you do get the protector on the shutter when the camera is off. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think every camera should have that on it. But yeah, that is about it for my my pros and cons. Actually, that was a pro, the shutter cover. My last con has been the colors. And this is very subjective as well, and I know there are people who swear by Canon colors, and for me, I'm just not feeling it. I first started off my career shooting Canon, had the T3i, but I was, you know, a super novice, so I didn't know to look, you know, I didn't know what color science was or anything like that, and I didn't really have anything to compare it to, Canon being my first camera. I eventually switched over to Sony mirrorless APS-C, just because of the mirrorless technology, and you know, I didn't really, you know, kind of notice the colors. I you know, kind of, you know, could tell like skin tones look a little bit weird, so it would take some tweaking and things like that as I, you know, grew in experience. And then I upgraded from like the Sony A6000 to the A6300 to the A7 III, from the A7 III to the Fujifilm X-T2, and I immediately like kind of noticed like, wow, you know, these colors are, you know, are great. And in my opinion, Fuji, they render skin tones the best of any camera manufacturer, and that's all I can say. Well, that's not really all I can say. I would say out of Canon, Nikon, and Sony, I've never shot Leica or Olympus or Panasonic, and I have really no desire to do so. So out of the big three, I would say that Fujifilm, who is not in that big three, Sony, Canon, Nikon, do have the best colors. That's just my opinion. It is what it is. But yeah, so when I first switched from Sony to Fuji, I kind of noticed it. I would say a year or so ago, I was thinking about switching to Nikon. I tried the Z6 out, and personally, I didn't like the colors either, and so I feel the same way about Canon. but it is what it is. So you guys will see kind of what I'm talking about in the next video. So again, video number 2, we're going to jump in and do photo comparisons. All the photo comparisons will be the R6 versus the X-T3, and then in the third video it'll be video comparisons, and this will be the R6 versus the XS10. And I did it on the XS10 because it does have the fully articulating screen. That way I can frame myself up, make sure, you know, I'm in focus, exposed right, all that good stuff. XS10 and the X-T3 have the same sensor, so you shouldn't expect a big dip in quality between, you know, the different cameras. So yeah, that's the R6. So for those of you who have been thinking about switching, definitely stay tuned for the next couple of videos. But I can say up front that I'm not switching. So Fuji gang, we gonna ride. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.